Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
Of course, happy to be here.
Thank you guys. The Gstaad Guy podcast.
We're excited to get started, and I know it's going to be amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I've been a big fan of your work since I was in high school. So it was a real shock to me when we first met at a Laura Piana event in LA. And I actually, even though I'm super tall, I've always been a terrible basketball player. I've been horrible. And I was always trying to find that edge.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I was watching, I used to be a sneakerhead growing up, and I was watching some sneaker unboxings. And I saw this one guy talk about these shoes that were banned because they had this like lock and load tech where you would, as you jump down, they would launch you back up. Yeah. Kind of like Wakanda. like the Black Panther in Vibranium. And I thought, this is... I need this. This is super cool. And I don't think you had European fulfillment at the time.
No.
I was based in the UK, so I went through the whole customs headache. But I got them. They were like green, lined with green, and they had like carbon fiber on the outside.
Exactly.
And I was still a terrible player. But,
but at least you could jump higher.
It made it so you could dunk better.
I did jump higher. I did jump higher for sure. And I remember I had this quiet period for a couple months after where I didn't hear much of the brand, and then out of nowhere I was seeing so much about APL online, and then seeing it in real life with a whole different aesthetic, with a whole different customer base. And it was still this incredible peak performance, but it also reached a lifestyle audience that I think the only performance they were doing is shopping. You know, but it was amazing. So I'd love to hear more about your story and how twin brothers working together, college athletes, came into this world of competing with the greats.
So we'll tell you the full story, but I'll start by saying, like, when we met you and obviously realized how tall you were, we started APL and created technology because we weren't 6'10", but we were still college athletes. So we wanted to try and jump as high as we possibly could.
Fine.
And we could jump really high, but we wanted something that would instantly make us jump higher. So that was the genesis for it. Ryan tells the story really well in terms of where we started, how we've built what we've become. But we created it for ourselves, and like we really felt like we had this personal need, and everybody has specific needs that outside of like the basic human ones. And to us at that moment in time when we created it, our hardcore need was that we instantly wanted to jump higher. And so that was the reason why we were able to put in the effort that we did to start APL, and then obviously what it's become today.
Amazing.
Around the world with your host, the Gstaad Guy. We welcome you back to the Gstaad Guy podcast, sharing stories of excellence with those in the know for those who just know.
Yeah, I mean, so we're 16 years in, so I'll do my best to sum it up quickly. But yeah, Adam and I were both basketball and football players in college at USC. And I was in the entrepreneurship program, and I used the APL as my business plan. And I told my professors there's 3 things that are going to make it special. 1, we're going to create a shoe that instantly makes you jump higher. 2, we're going to price it at $300, which at the time was twice the price of anything in the market. And 3, we're going to start by selling direct to consumer exclusively through our website. And this is back in 2008, 2009. And my professors told me it wouldn't work for all 3 reasons and would be a massive failure. So I still have the business plan with the grade. I didn't get top 10 in the business plan competition, and we started 2 months before we graduated.
Wow.
And then on October 19th, 2010, the shoes got banned by the NBA.
Wow.
So the reason why they got banned is we created a patented technology, load and launch, which when you compress all of your energy, it propels you upwards instantly. And when we did the biomechanic testing, we found that normal guys off a college campus got up to 3.5-inch increase instantly, whereas like elite athletes could get 5 or 6 inches. And so that day was the #1 news story in the world. It was the number 2, 3, and 17 most searched terms on Google. There's over 1 million articles posted within 10 days. We sold 9 months of inventory within 3 days. Oh. And so for the next 4 years, we just sold exclusively through our website men's basketball shoes. And at the time, like, we were working out of a 60 square foot office and there's 4 people. And then we always had this vision of creating this category, which was luxury performance. Mm-hmm. And we felt like we had to start in a micro niche where we had authenticity and credibility. And being college basketball players at USC, we felt like that was the spot. But on June 17th, 2014, we launched our men's and women's running shoes. Our first retailer for men was Saks Fifth Avenue. Right away, we had the 2 top selling SKUs there. Our first retailer for women was Net-a-Porter, which we launched with on January 1st, 2015. Within 6 days, became the fastest selling new designer of all time, hit our season's target sell-through, and then grew the business from there. And the reason why we went to these really high-end luxury wholesale partners is we wanted to build this category and do it in an authentic and efficient way. And so we started selling in Saks, Barney's, Net-a-Porter, Mr. Porter, Harvey Nichols, Selfridges, Le Bon Marché, Level Shoes, Lane Crawford, you name it, we were there.
Wow.
And then in 2016, Adam and I became the first 2 members ever inducted to the CFDA from an athletic brand. So it was the first time they were saying, not only is this sport, not only is it performance, but it's also luxury and fashion. So that was a big moment for us because it started to really open the door of us creating this category. And then August 8th, 2017, we launched with Lululemon. We became the only third-party brand sold in their stores. We launched in 23 stores across North America. Adam and I went to all 23 within 38 days. So, and it was everywhere from Los Angeles, New York, Toronto, Calgary, Dallas, Detroit, all of these different places. And when we did it, their market cap was $7.9 billion. Over the next 20 months, a number of things changed, but a big thing being APL in their stores, and their market cap rose to over $24 billion.
Wow. And
we expanded to hundreds of doors. So it was a really amazing thing to kind of see the impact we were having in these environments, and for us to see that it was working in every single location. So then on November 24th, 2019, we opened our first flagship in Los Angeles at the Grove, which we feel like is an incredible destination to experience the brand and the first physical representation of what APL looks like in the real world. We grew through the pandemic. We then partnered with Red Bull Racing for F1 in 2023. It became the most dominant season in the history of F1. And then in November 9th, 2023, we opened our flagship in Soho, which is, we feel like, the most incredible physical space that you could experience for retail. And we call it the world of APL. And we've done all of this without raising a dollar of outside capital, owning 100% of the business, and just being on this incredible journey. So it's been really, really amazing to have this vision that started as athletes in college and then build it to where it is today and carve out this category and really own it of luxury performance.
It's amazing. It's really, really the most incredible story. I'm shocked. It's so amazing. I think you're actually downplaying the impact that you've had on fashion culture and the way that people now mix in athleticism and performance into even formal wear. And I think you guys were very much ahead of the game with perceiving running shoes and performance shoes as a luxury piece. And the placement that you put APL in with brands like Saks and with Net-a-Porter was super ahead of the game, but can be seen today with people who mix in things like a Whoop with like the most formal outfits, or an Apple Watch at a gala. And I think it's functional, it's comfortable, but more than anything, it's a statement.
I mean, for us, like, the thing that you hit on was what was really important to us. And when we started APL, our goal was to build the luxury performance category. We needed to have our foundation be in performance, because luxury, it's a little bit easier to navigate in through price point, through materials, these other things. But performance either performs or it doesn't. And we saw a huge white space in terms of building out this market that didn't exist, and also creating things for ourselves that started from that point of view and that perspective that we felt others would eventually gravitate towards and come into. And so for us, like, that was what a huge opportunity was. And I think one thing that makes us really unique too is that men feel like it's a brand for them, but women feel like it's a brand for them. Sure. 65% of our business is female. And so that is something that is really important to us and something that we've leaned into from very early on. And I like to give a sports reference. You're supposed to go where the puck is going, not where it is. And for us, like, we believed that this is where culture was going to go, and we felt that we could influenced it through the design decisions we made, the technical innovations we created, and that if we did things correctly that we believed in, other people would see it the way that you just articulated it. And so that's scary might be the wrong word, but it's difficult, especially when you don't have a large brand, you're very small, you have limited resources, and you believe in this thing that others don't. And something that Ryan and I always talk about is that when you make non-consensus right decisions, you get these huge outcomes. Yep. And it's hard for anybody else to see it and anybody else to believe in it. It's part of the reason why when we were really small, we had to be independent, because other people couldn't see where we wanted to go. And so, but we had this almost blind hope, blind vision in terms of what we wanted to execute against, and then made decisions as we were going to help bring this to reality. You still have to get lucky. Like, there's luck that's involved, and I think a lot of times when people reach really high levels of success, it's difficult to acknowledge that there's luck involved with it too. But luck comes from like being at the right place at the right time and working very hard too. Sure. And so you can influence luck. You can't always create it, but you can influence it. And so we believed culture would be at that point eventually, and that we could help create the path to go there. We didn't do it ourselves, obviously, but we did something that we felt like was very unique and was differentiated. And I think that's why we've had the success we've had, and we still feel like we're at the beginning. So there's still so much more to do, and we're really unique in terms of the way that we approach things.
I love that. I mean, there's so much to unpack and so much to talk about here. I have 1,000 questions, but I do want to go back to that moment at USC.
Yeah.
Was it a Marshall Business School?
Yep.
I also went to business school as an undergrad, and I did 100 of these pitches, none of which I ever took to life. And I can speak on behalf of my classmates. None of us ever took anything out of those classrooms, really, especially nothing that the teachers rejected. It's coming from this level of authority in business schools. A lot of these professors are entrepreneurs themselves. Yep. So when they give us a thumbs up, it feels good, but a thumbs down feels equally bad. So how did you get the confidence, and what was the feeling that you actually felt about your idea that made you pursue it with such little resources and such little conviction from authority?
That's a great question. And when I think back on it, it comes from a couple of places. So one, being an athlete, you deal with uncertainty in every game. So the only thing you can trust in is any preparation you've had, the skill that you have, and your belief that when you're on the court and you go to the basket, you're going to score. It was kind of that same mindset that we were bringing to the entrepreneurial world. The other part of it too, and we've talked about this a lot, both together and then obviously to others, that if someone tells you it's a bad idea, you don't necessarily need to listen. And if someone tells you it's a good idea, you don't necessarily need to listen. You need to be the person that feels and truly believes in it. And so it was something that we were very passionate about. We really believed in it. We felt like it was something that was missing from the market, both from a performance side. And Adam, one of the things that he's always talked about is the best innovations come from a need, not a want. And it felt like we needed to jump higher because we were competing on the court at such a high level. And we felt like we needed this product. And then we just really went after it. And I think one of the other parts of it too is, and Adam said it, but the non-consensus right decision. So we went into a category, thought about it a different way, and believed in it like in our bones. And so we felt like also, and I think this part's important, and you can relate to it when you're in business school, but when you're that young, you don't feel like you really have anything to lose. So while experience is valuable and knowledge is valuable, inexperience is just as valuable, if not more valuable, because you don't know what you don't know. And so you can just blindly go after it and hope. And that optimism a lot of times gets you a lot further. And we felt like it really did for us. And then the other part of it, which is I think a crucial part, is we felt like we needed it in the sense that we wanted a product that could make us jump higher, that also didn't have big and blazing logos. Let the material, the color, the technology, and design tell the story. And those things have framed the ethos and the vision of the brand, but we felt it back then. And there was also something, I would say, rewarding about the fact that everyone didn't believe in it. We're the type of people that if you don't believe in it, it just fuels us that much more to go after it. And I think that's a special type of person to be an entrepreneur. You need to feel that way. Someone's no just means I'm going to show you that it's going to happen. And for us, that was the fuel that we had. I was also like kind of playing like a game of telephone, telling Adam all the feedback I was getting from the program or the professors. And that made Adam like that much amped up more to go after it as well. So I think that was all of the parts, and the fact there was two of us. So just as a team, we were able to go after it and really like approach it from a thoughtful perspective. And we have different strengths, but we work really well together. And I think that obviously comes from the athletic heritage too. So yeah, I mean, I really believed in it, even though the program didn't, and I didn't let that define me.
Also, like something that you asked about was the confidence aspect.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times people think of confidence as this thing that you have that's unshakable no matter what situation you're in at any given time. And I think you can develop that over time as you've proven things to yourself, not to others. And so, like, because I think true confidence comes from the things that you've done and held yourself accountable to and that you've executed against. And so to have confidence at a young age, you have to have proven to yourself that you can do things that are very difficult. And our sports career, like to Ryan's point, had proven to us that like when we put in lots of work, lots of effort, it's not always the exact outcome that we believe, but it gave us the confidence to know that we can and will succeed if we try enough times. And I think also the higher your confidence rises in certain things, the lower your fear starts to dip. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but it means that you have the internal tools to deal with those things as it becomes present. And to Ryan's point, and I think he articulates it really well, is that you are at that age, you haven't done enough to know that you probably couldn't do this, so you're brave enough to try it. And so we were brave enough. We also, again, back to the luck aspect, was during the recession when we're starting it. So there were not an extraordinary amount of options. And so our risk of failure was pretty low because our starting point was very low. So like if you fall off the top of the building and you hit the ground, you know how that probably ends.
Yeah.
If you fall off a single step, you can get up pretty quickly.
That's true.
And so that's the perspective we were looking at when we started. I mean, it sounds much better as we say it today. It wasn't as crystallized as we were starting. We just were willing to do it and believed in it. But that's where it came from. And to Ryan's point, like he was in the program and I was in sociology and communications, but he would come back to the dorm each night and he would tell me what like the feedback was, and that fueled us. And we had this list of goals when you would walk out the door to into the hallway from the dorm room, and one of the things on the wall was prove the disbelievers wrong. And so like it wasn't necessarily for other people, it was more so that like we don't need somebody else's acceptance, we need to believe in it ourselves. And if we do the hard things and we do them well, other people will end up seeing it eventually. So that was like the genesis of where and why we started it. But I am also thankful and grateful that everybody didn't believe in it, because Ryan wouldn't have tried as hard as he did in the program. He wouldn't have pushed as hard as he did, and he wouldn't have worked on it as consistently as he did with me. So I think like, again, sometimes when you're in the moment, you're frustrated with what the circumstances are and what the feedback is. But if you can adjust that, like, and use that as a positive force, which again, we didn't necessarily know that's what we were doing at the time, you can get these tremendous outcomes and end up here on the Gstaad Guy podcast.
And when people don't believe in it, it makes the story better.
Yeah,
That's true.
So the story is infinitely better because of the beginning that way.
Yeah.
We're cognizant of that. We know that. And for what it's worth, the professor that doubted it has become an incredible supporter.
Okay.
So it wasn't from them being a bad guy.
Yeah.
It was from them just not seeing the vision.
No, it's really incredible. And I think it's it's evident in your product releases as well, because you've had this development conviction that can be seen over time, where you made a bet on a certain product category or a certain silhouette that paid off years later. And I think a great example of that is logos are a statement in the same way that no logo is also a statement.
Yeah.
And growing up, logo was a bigger thing. And I remember my dad would say, there's no need for logos, that the silhouette will do the talking. And I thought it was just such like a dad mindset, you know? And also there was no modern silhouettes or anything with technology that wasn't big on logo. I think we take the examples of Nike with the swoosh, Apple, like logo is such a big part of just product development in general. And anything new in technology would need the logo to show what it is. Fast forward maybe 10 years since your initial banned basketball shoe, and I start seeing APL around, it's part of a silhouette and a wardrobe of a person that is very logo free.
Yeah.
I see it mixed in a lot with the Loro Piana crowd. I see it with the Audemars Piguet watch lovers.
Yeah.
I see it with people who are truly practicing athleisure or a performance benefit lifestyle mixed in with luxury and performance in their day-to-day. For what I mean by that is someone who is very busy at work and wants to look elegant in meetings, but also wants to be comfortable and also wants to move quickly. They're mixing an APL. And that's now a trend. And it's a cooler and cooler thing to be understated.
Yeah.
But you guys made that bet long before that. So I'd love to know what the thought process was to make such a big bet and to make such a big leap when you're already successful in sportswear and performance, to go to Saks and Net-a-Porter and tackle women's wear and this totally different silhouette that must have taken a lot of conviction.
Yeah, it definitely did. And the part about it that we loved is we were creating stuff that we felt like connected for us too. Like it really started from creating product that we wanted and we loved. But we also looked at it from the standpoint of, if you looked at a wall full of other brands and ours was sitting right there, no logo was our logo. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to really focus on the silhouette. It lets you to focus on the materials, the color, the texture. And while we're speaking of those things, we're obviously talking about a piece of footwear. But when we approach the world, that's how we look at it as well. And we feel like there's a cohesive look that a lot of times people start and build from their feet. So giving somewhat of a blank canvas that focuses on these really incredible details and the actual proportion of the silhouette, the material and how it can tell an incredible story, allows you to then express your personality in a different way. And so we really believed that there was a big audience for this. They just were not being catered to, and there wasn't a product yet that was designed that could fit seamlessly into their lives, where they could change their clothes throughout the day and keep their footwear the same. And so that's what we fully intended to do. And like, we live and breathe it. So we haven't worn another pair of shoes in decades. And it's really because we've created these products that we feel like can be brought into every aspect of our life. I think from the female perspective and creating the silhouette, going to those different retailers, it's been a lot of fun too, because it allows us to be even more exploratory with color as well. And what we've seen is the customer will buy one pair, a lot of times in a core color, whether it's ivory or black or gray, and then they'll come back and really get into the brand in all of these amazing ways. And I think from our perspective, that's how we always viewed it. We viewed it as building this wardrobe, fitting seamlessly with the luxury brands that exist in the world, but allowing you to perform at these incredibly high levels. And we definitely saw it early on and got significant pushback for a lack of a logo. But we believed that into the future, that was going to be something that a lot of people really wanted. And the coolest thing in the world is seeing people wear your product that you don't know. So when you see someone out in the world that doesn't know you and you don't know them, and they're wearing the product because they've bought it and love it, and feel like it ties into the aesthetic of who they are, That's the coolest thing.
I mean, something that you said that stands out to me and is like, and is important is when we think about the positioning of APL, and I think you said it in an amazing way in terms of like the synergies, whether it's people that are wearing Loro Piana, wearing Audemars Piguet, or these other types of like high-end luxury brands. I mean, Hermes, similar type of thing. Like there's not these huge visible logos on a lot of the things where you see APL is complemented with. Mm-hmm. And when you think of athletics, you always think of like sports, obviously, because of athleticism, but we've always thought of like creative athletics. Mm-hmm. And so like for us, like we wanted to expand what the definition of that is, right? So like the person that's like a creative athlete exists in this world. They're mm-hmm. doing other things. They're stretching themselves to levels they didn't know that they could do. They're creating things that didn't exist before, and they're trying to deliver at these incredibly high levels. I mean, I'll use chefs as an example. That's a strenuous physical activity, mm-hmm. right? And it gives you the opportunity, whether what's on your wrist or what's on your feet, to express yourself in a different way, and you still want to perform. And to your point, like when you talk about the boardroom or the office, like there's no reason why the old uniform has to necessarily exist today. Everything evolves over time, right? And like back to the hockey reference, you want to be where the puck is going, not where it is now, or in basketball where the pass is going to be. Sure. You want to be in those passing lanes or further. And so for us, we always viewed that through APL as that's the lens. We have the pinnacle of sport with Formula One and being the partners of Red Bull, but we also have it where the pinnacle of creatives are wearing the product, and they're using it to express themselves through design, material, color, technology, innovation. And like Ryan won't say it, but like Ryan's a master of color theory. So like when we're building these colorways, we're trying to elicit emotions when people see the product, because if you can establish this emotional connection to a product, it will just take it much further. Yeah. And to the thing that you said as well in terms of the people that are wearing it, we had never set out for every single person in the world to wear our product. Mm-hmm. We wanted to create something that pulled people in and people gravitated towards. Yeah. That means that not everybody's going to love it, mm-hmm. but the people that do, it means a lot to them. And to me, that's like the beautiful part of a brand. And it's the reason why brands can exist in different parts of the category. Like we're the pinnacle of where we exist in our market. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in. And we've built it over a long, sustained period of time. And it means a lot to us. And so for us, like as we continue to expand, it gives us a greater opportunity to lean into those strengths and then continue to pull the people that you're referring to. And so for us, like that's been a huge thing. And when we think about like what we stand for, beautiful performance has always been something that's important to us. And we never felt like you had to compromise aesthetic for function or function for aesthetic, that there's a beautiful way that you can bring them together. And again, the people that gravitate towards it are going to love it and understand what makes it special. And you may buy it because of the small logo, but chances are you're buying it because of the beautiful materials, the textures that we create, the amazing and intricate color stories. And then once you put them on, like nothing feels like them either. So those are things that we're extremely proud of and are a true point of differentiation for us.
I love the topic of the color theory and the coloring. And I'm generally very curious about obsession and a focus on mastery in one lane. And I think looking back at your success, it's easy to downplay the obsession part of things and say, a couple guys started the shoe brand did well, now they make more cool shoes. I think that would be really oversimplifying the amount of decisions you would have had to make along the way to really focus on shoes, because when the basketball shoes did well, you could have made a line of athletic wear. You could have made basketballs. You could have done 100 things. And you had hundreds of decisions you've had to make throughout to really focus on your craft and stay obsessed with the identity of APL, which developed and grew over time, but it sounds like stayed true to those initial values you wanted to maintain in the brand. So I'd love to know more about your love for obsession in your respective crafts I'd love to know more about your love for color and how that started. And Adam, what is it about APL that you obsessed over the years that allowed it to stay in this narrow lane that brought you to where it is today?
It's interesting the way you said it, because I couldn't agree more in terms of the focus and narrowness. So we always say constraints lead to creativity. Yep. So when you have endless options, it's actually pretty challenging to make strong, pointed decisions. For sure. Because you can essentially go anywhere. So I think because we started in a place where we had such tight constraints, we had to be very focused in terms of how we did things and how we leaned into it. I mean, one of the things is like we have an insane schedule because we go to sleep like almost like 4 a.m. every single night.
It's so contrarian.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the exact opposite of what you would think based on the things that we do. But it's part of it is because we know that we're so much more creative during the evening. And so like being able to optimize your schedule to be able to be creative when it makes the most sense for you, I think is amazing when it's possible. It's not possible for everybody.
Do you not wake up at 4 a.m. like Ashton Hall and put your face in a bucket of ice?
I didn't dunk my face this morning, but I might have to try it. But okay. we go to sleep when Ashton is waking up. Okay. But it's worked really well for us. In the beginning, it was much more challenging because we didn't have the benefit of being able to wake up later. Yeah. So like we had to basically go on 4 hours a night of sleep, which that is it's not ideal. But as we got further into it, we were able to build a schedule around it. Right. But the thing that I've like truly always obsessed over is being very clear in terms of how do we articulate what we stand for, what is the vision, what is our unique point of view, and what is our perspective. And trying not to pay attention to the noise, trying to focus on solely what we do best. And we've always believed that if we do the things that we're extremely proud of, other people will eventually end up gravitating towards it. And I think like the luxury that we have today is we sold millions of pairs of shoes. And so millions of people have had experience in our shoes. And so to Ryan's point, they then tell other people about what their experience is like. And then when you think of how many people there are in the world, I think it's like 8-something billion. We're still very small in comparison to the greater population. So there's so many people that whether they see this podcast or they walk into our flagship in New York or they see Max Verstappen wearing the shoe, or they see the head mechanic wearing the product, or they see
all the Kardashians.
Yeah. I would see one of them where like some amazing influencer that's wearing the product when she's in Paris for Fashion Week. That's the first experience with the brand. So the thing that like I obsess more than anything is like how do we make sure that every single touch point that we exist in is something that we are incredibly proud of. And if that was the only thing that somebody saw, then it would be an amazing takeaway. You don't get to control everything, but you get to try to put your best foot forward every single time. And by not trying to do so many more things like what you said, because like you said, you could have done this, and sticking to the things that we have a true passion for and now a mastery of, we can put out a better product and a better experience and have it be more cohesive.
Yep.
And to me, like, that's the most amazing thing is when a brand and a product is exactly what you think it is in every instance and how you experience it, regardless if it was planned or not. Like, yeah. I love how that feels. And I mean, like when we talked about AP, but like, that's one of the things that I've always looked up to them about is that yeah. like, they really did do that, like the sport performance luxury watch, yep. right? And like they really stood behind the Royal Oak, and you knew that no matter where you were in the world, if you saw one, you know what the experience would be like in store. Sure. And so like to me, like I've always admired that, and it's something that like we're obviously passionate about.
Beautiful watches.
But like for us, like it's always been something that we've focused on. And as we've gone from starting direct to consumer, then we had wholesale, now we have physical retail, it's that we want to make sure that when you see and experience the brand, it's through these beautiful ways and it's cohesive. So like, yeah. I'm obsessed over cohesion and articulation. So like if we can articulate it clearly and it's cohesive, I'm very proud of it.
And then for me, from a design and color perspective, the thing that's always drawn me to it is that the right color can completely transform someone's experience, whether with a product, with a space, with anything. And a lot of times the thought is just put on the color, but it's this balance that occurs between a silhouette, the material that's used, whether it's naturally occurring. There's so many different aspects to approach it from. And like to Adam's point about our schedule, for me, late night is the time of creativity. So we work throughout the day with our team doing all these different things. And then late at night is when I feel like I can dream. And when it comes to creating the color stories, obviously sometimes it comes from just purely what I'd like to see, but it's also in terms of calling out specific aspects of a product, of an environment, of a feeling and emotion that we're trying to articulate. And I think that color does that in a really powerful way. And when you play with the different textures, even in the same monochromatic color, you can get a lot of depth to the storytelling of what you're looking to achieve. And for me, color has always just connected like with me from a deep level. And I remember like as a kid, when I was choosing my bedding, just like knowing that like I'm going to go to sleep, it's the last thing I'm going to see. And then when I wake up, it's going to be the first thing I see.
Yep.
The last thing I'll say on it is I think that obviously like we're really focused in the way that we do things, but our true superpower is taste. Mm-hmm. And so I think like that's something that can't be like understated. I don't think we need to overstate it, but I think like you can do all of the other things. And when you're trying to exist in the world that we are building, taste is something that's really important. And I think like taste leads to the emotional feel and the emotional connection. And like a lot of the things you said, if you peeled away all of the other stuff, the underlying principle is taste. For sure. And so I think like that's a superpower of ours that we really try to lean into. And it's also why we try not to do a zillion things. We only do things that we believe in. Yep. Is because we know we can execute it at a higher level than others. So like that's something that as I think is a superpower of ours. And again, back to pride, it's something we take a lot of pride in.
You asked me about it that time.
I know.
And Adam was like, we were trying to think about it because we had heard different people talk about in business places, mm-hmm. like find your superpower, what's your superpower, all these different things. And so Adam was like, what do you think your superpower is? And I was like, taste. And I said it right away because I feel like it transforms. It can go a lot of different ways. Yep. And it does also, in this time we're living in, it's what allows you to actually be unique. Because there's this law I've talked about for a while, which is Goodhart's law, which is when a measure becomes a target, it fails to be a good measure. And taste is something that you can't really measure. You either feel it or you don't. You either have it or you don't. You can guide someone in a direction to make informed decisions, but it's an inherent thing to who you are. It's innate. Yep. And when we were conceptualizing the brand and what it was going to represent from a design standpoint, the phrase that we used to define our point of view is simple yet severe. And you can see that, you can feel that, and it also makes it so that when you make these different decisions on details, the taste is what really shines through. Yep. And I mean, I love that Adam said it because it's something that we don't normally outwardly talk about, but it's definitely something that we believe and stand behind.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you're talking about taste, because taste is one of these like untangibles that are very difficult to measure and very difficult to justify if people aren't on the same page as you. And I think all the greats that I'm a lover of, like Laura Piana, Audemars Piguet, Apple, there's this conversation that could take place of, but what's the point of this? And when you're talking about iPhones, for example, there's 100, but what's the point of this in the design that you could justify? And also 100 that you could actually just trust. And that's where taste comes in. And when Steve Jobs was creating, you could have 100 reasons to push back on why you would design things a certain way, but taste would take over and you'd have to trust that process. So I think that what you guys have built is undeniably incredible. And when something's incredible, it can be intimidating to people who want to emulate that path, especially when their process might look so different. And I notice that from friends around me when they see people that have achieved great success and they have a routine that seems so alien. Like they're waking up at 6 a.m. and they're going to the gym, and then they have this team and they have this incredible system in place that helps them fuel that success. They feel like I can never emulate the product of their hard work because I can't even emulate the process of their hard work. And when you guys said that you go to sleep at 4 a.m.,
Yeah.
I think it's very like programmer gamer,
Yeah.
which, I mean, a lot of actually what you guys do seems like you're running APL kind of like a tech business and kind of like Apple, to be honest. So it's really cool to hear.
I will take the comparison.
I love to hear that. But that I think is very inspiring and interesting for people to hear, because process is often very intimidating, and people sometimes feel, oh my God, I'm going to bed too late to be successful, and my partner or my siblings or my children are too present in my life for me to be able to make those sacrifices to be successful and to take a leap of faith. But it sounds like you guys have 100 things going on and 100 reasons to be able to go to sleep earlier and work earlier, but you're choosing to have this sort of non-conventional routine. So I'd love to know more about how you've chosen to position your lifestyles and your processes the way you have.
I mean, so I think the first thing to obviously address is that it is a luxury at this moment in time. It's not something that everybody could do. Like, say every single person thought they worked better if they slept from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. like us. A lot of people, it's not in the realm of possibility for them today. Doesn't mean it won't be into the future. Mm-hmm. Just like at one moment in time, we were going to sleep at 4 and we were waking up at 8. So like that wasn't great, but it was what we had to do at that moment in time. But I think, again, to your point, there is this idea of this is the optimal schedule for everyone. Like I've seen the podcast, I've heard the stuff. I can tell you from firsthand experience, it's not optimal to us. And I think the place where it starts is you have to be true with yourself. A lot of people, like in all of the things you said, are genuine reasons not to do it, but they don't ask themselves the difficult question about like, what do I think will actually work best? Because when you're doing things that are best for yourself, as long as you're not just being outwardly selfish all of the time, you're probably going to end up helping other people easier and faster as a result. So like one of the benefits, I guess, to our schedule is that people know like most of the world is not awake from midnight to 4 a.m. If something difficult happens during that time, you have 2 people that you can call that are going to be in the right mindset to make an important decision. Yeah. So that's a benefit to somebody else, right? So which would usually be a negative turns into a positive. But like the way that we identified the thing that worked best for us is we started with inspiration. When did we feel inspired the most?
Late nights.
And like it's always late at night. All of our greatest ideas happen when it's dark outside. Yeah. It does not happen when it's light outside. Doesn't mean that we can't execute and that we can't do the things that we have to do throughout the day, because we can. But to Ryan's point about dreaming, most of our dreaming takes place while we're awake during the nighttime. And during the daytime, we do the things that we systematically have to do in order to run the business, create opportunities and whatnot. But it came from being honest with ourselves and honest with our team. Like, this is what works best for us. This is how we can help you the best. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to stop you from doing the schedule that works best for you, but don't stop us from the one that works best for us. And so I think a lot of times when you talk about all of those things, it really comes down to clear communication. The better you can communicate and the clearer you can communicate, the more likely you're going to get the outcome that you want. And I agree with you about like the daunting aspect. Like even if you hear what we're saying today, it sounds like, how could I start and then do these things? But I think the starting place is being honest with yourself about the schedule that works. Like, got a text from you early in the morning today. I know you're an early morning guy. So you to try and do our schedule, it wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't have the success that you're having today if you had to adhere to our schedule.
For me, it's the opposite.
Yeah, and same, like, and just like we wouldn't if we had to adhere to yours.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it starts with this position of honesty, and for some reason, there's this guilt associated in the world with if you don't wake up at 6 a.m. and you don't do these things. So again, like, we just didn't buy into that. We believe that we could execute a much better life if we built it in the way that we believed fit. And like something that we've always thought about is, and I think this has led us to where we are today, and it's part of why our schedule is the way it is. We've always thought about, someone's going to live your dream. It might as well be you. And so like the best way for us to get to that point is to do it on a schedule that we love, enjoy, and are effective at.
I love that. I mean, that's incredibly motivational to people who feel frozen, for sure. And I think I'd love to hear more about those moments where you feel like you just have to push through and take action, which may not be moments of motivation necessarily, but maybe moments of defeat at times.
For sure.
I mean, you guys have been doing this for 16 years.
Yeah.
And I think when people see success, they assume the path has always looked similar, which is never the case.
Yeah.
You know, like we know that very well. So I'd love to know about, if you don't mind sharing, what moments did you feel defeat, or moments you felt like maybe you made the wrong choice doing this, even if you ever felt that at all, and how did you conquer those moments?
So I think we've probably had more of those moments than I can remember. I think that more so than taking something where it's this defeat and acknowledging it as pure defeat and then going on to the next thing, the way we like to think of situations when it didn't necessarily go as we expected, but we can turn it into a positive. Because like one of the things about energy is that like once it's created, if it's not going the way that you want, you should try to redistribute it to a place that you want it to go. And I mean, the most visual example we have is the NBA ban, right? So as two guys that grew up obsessed with basketball, our dream was to make the NBA. Obviously, we weren't good enough to make the NBA. The next best thing would be the shoe we created being an NBA. We find out it's getting banned by the NBA. We essentially have a few minutes to decide. Like, you either feel really defeated in this moment, like the thing that you dreamed of isn't going to happen, or the way that we repackaged it. And again, I think this is an experience when you talk about these defeats. The other ones are a little bit more specific, so they're not as applicable maybe to this, is that you can repackage this moment and say like, all of this energy is created. How do we redistribute this to something that's positive, which is lean into it? And so we leaned all the way into, this is banned by the NBA. So put a big plastered sticker on the website, banned by the NBA. All of the messaging was banned by the NBA because it provides the wearer with an undue competitive advantage. And so that moment, we took this energy, harnessed it, turned it into a positive, and that's what created so many more opportunities for us.
And to that point, we've always looked at it from the perspective of, if it's not going to happen or if it's not going to work, at least it happened on our terms and the way that we tried to do it, which is a way where you can be comfortable and at peace with the decision you make because you gave it your best effort. And I think, and this might be controversial, one of the things that I've always taken issue with is when people say you learn the most from your failures. And I think it's true to a point, but if all you do is fail and you keep failing, then you're just a failure. Whereas if you fail and you learn from that in a sense and eventually succeed, then it was just something that was along your path and your journey to success. It wasn't exactly a failure. And so I think whenever I've heard that, I've had I would say a visceral gut reaction to that, because I think it can paint the wrong message.
Yep.
Whereas it's okay to make the wrong decision and not have the success initially. But if you're looking towards getting to somewhere on a path or a journey, you don't want to completely go off of that. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's why it's not a failure. It's a process, or it's a step along your journey. When you get faced with a really difficult situation, I intentionally in that moment try and put myself in a positive mindset, just so I can give myself the best shot that I possibly can with approaching this difficult situation. Whether it's in a business, whether it's personal, whether it's physical, try and take as best as you can a positive mindset in that moment, even if it seems almost improbable, because just because it's improbable doesn't mean it's impossible. And that is something that has really benefited me, both personally and obviously in the business. And it also kind of goes into our approach when it comes to the business, and we're looking to do really big things. One of the things that we've always done is we've told ourselves this, and we say it to each other, is the worst thing someone can say is no. So if we're trying to go after something that we really believe in, we think is a great opportunity, and we really want to make it happen, we'll go to whatever length we can to try and make it happen. And if for some reason the answer is no and it doesn't happen, we're in the exact same spot that we started out in. So we really view it from that mindset, and it's some of our biggest wins that we've ever gotten has been because of that, where we've said, if it doesn't happen, we're in the exact same spot that we are to begin with. But if it does happen, it fundamentally changes the outlook of our lives. And it's a really freeing way to approach it that way, because you remove the fear, you remove the doubt, and you remove any negative associations you have with the outcome not being the best it possibly can. Yep. And a lot of times that's what actually allows you to get that outcome. And so it's like the most improbable thing ends up becoming the most possible thing. And it's because you've really removed all of these negative barriers, and you're just focusing on what is the goal, how can I make it happen, and it would be amazing if it does.
I love that. I really love all the different points you're making here about process over outcome, and also about this like optimism in the process. I think that optimism, when you're very process focused, can manifest itself in different ways. In some ways it can literally just be not being negative. But for me, it's always been just continuing to dream, and to dream this fiction of life. And that's been my way of enjoying the process. It's actually reminding myself of what the big dream could be or might be. And my friends sometimes, often call me delusional growing up. Like, you're crazy. Like, what do you mean you could do this with that? And I'm so grateful that today I feel like I'm living so many of those delusional dreams. Yeah. You know, I'm sitting with two founders of an amazing business I admire, because I was having fun making fun of one of my best friends. Created a fictional character, started working with one of my favorite brands, Loro Piana. I got invited to a Loro Piana event, and now I'm here with you, and I'm a founder and I'm also a creator. So I'm living in this universe that I couldn't have even scripted myself. And a part of that came from dreaming it into reality. And I've always been this classroom dreamer, where I wouldn't focus in class and just think of these fictional worlds. Yeah. And that's actually been what's really strung me along. So I love hearing about people's different ways of being optimistic, because there's no rule. Optimism just seems like sometimes it's a smile, mm-hmm. but actually it's so many things, and it can be so many things for different people. I would love to wrap up this incredible conversation with something that's very Gstaad Guy. And in my Gstaad Guy way, I talk about what's à la poubelle and should not belong, and what's fantastique and should, and something we're grateful for and something we celebrate. First, start with à la poubelle? What is a part of the world that you find yourselves in, or part of the industry you find yourselves in, that you wish could be different?
I wish that people were more transparent about what either they were hoping to get from you or what they were looking for, or just what the relationships were like. And so I would change that if I could. I would make it so that people were able to be just more authentically themselves, so that you could make a quicker decision. Like, this is either right or it's not. Because like, not everything has to be for everybody, but that's something that I would say à la poubelle.
À la poubelle. Hidden agendas. À la poubelle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, just tell us.
Exactly.
And for me, I mean, obviously there's a number of things, and I agree with what Adam said. And I think from our perspective, like, there was this video we did when we were speaking at a conference years ago, and someone was filming in the back, and Adam and I were talking, just like not really understanding we were getting filmed. And we said, if we're up there and we don't know what to say, just tell the truth. And that small thing makes a really big difference. But for me, in terms of thinking about whether the industry we're in, or fashion or sport, anything, I think this constant chase to just become bigger and grow for any reason at all costs, and taking a more short-sighted point of view than long, I wish that would change, because stuff takes time. It needs to grow. It needs to get its roots. It needs to there's a reason why they call it building a foundation, and you go from there. And I think a lot of times when you're chasing these other things, which has been magnified within culture, to like, what do you have? What have you done? What is your revenue? How many employees do you have? All of these different things, as opposed to focusing on like really building something that takes time and is sustainable as a result. I wish that mindset would change and go à la poubelle.
I love that. I totally agree with both of those things. So now on the Fantastique side, I mean, you guys have been expressing gratitude this whole time. Yeah. So there's a long list there, which I love, and I really actually see eye to eye in. I think gratitude is the first step to feeling happy. But what are some things that are particularly Fantastique and top of mind?
The ability that we've had, like, since Ryan and I were kids, we've admired Rolls-Royce. Like, it's always been to us like the definition of excellence. And I'm not just talking about the car, it's the positioning, the attention to detail, material selection, the way that they do innovation, all of the things that go into the brand. That if you say something's the best of, you say it's the Rolls-Royce of. So the fact that we have the relationship that we do with them, that they did inspiring greatness about us, and like, that was so outside of the realm of possibility. But there's a lot of like brands and people in general, like, the more you get to know them, the less appealing they become. But Rolls-Royce was the exact opposite. Like, the more you learn, just the more beautiful the brand, the positioning, the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. So like, just that it's possible for a brand to exist that long, and the people that are the stewards of it today are not the people that started it. That's like, essentially, that's what we're trying to create. And so I think the ability that we get to see it, the perspective of what happens when you make a lot of right decisions over a really long period of time, and then now we get to interact with it, and so hopefully we can implement those things in what we're doing. Like, you couldn't ask for something better than that. So
and to like sum it up with one last story to that, back, call like 2015-ish or something like that, another great car brand, not Rolls-Royce, but a great car brand, came to us about wanting to do a partnership. And it was like, at the time, a really great opportunity. Like, we were definitely very excited. We called our dad, we told him, we said, this brand wants to do this partnership. They want to do these different things. What do you think? And my dad was like, yeah, you should definitely do it. And we said, well, yeah, but if we do it with them, we can't do it with Rolls-Royce. And he goes, does Rolls-Royce want to do a partnership? We're like, no. He's like, is there any reason to believe that they want to do a partnership? We're like, no. He's like, then take this deal. Like, you should do this. And we turned it down.
Wow.
And the reason we turned it down is we had, for some, like, again,
The delusion.
optimistically
Optimistically.
delusional point of view,
Yeah.
that we were going to have a partnership with Rolls-Royce. So we turned that down, and then 6 years later, the partnership with Rolls-Royce happened, and it's been absolutely incredible.
I feel the exact same way. I mean, I never would have thought in my first video frowning, I'd be
Yeah.
I'd be an ambassador of my 3 favorite brands,
Yeah.
Unmach Piguet, Loro Piana, and Acqua di Parma. It's like, and I turned down many things along the way. I just had this like delusion, really, that I want my character to be associated with nothing but the best. And I just locked into that mindset. So fully aligned with what you're saying. I love what you said about peeling back the layers of Rolls-Royce and it gets better. I think the viewers listening to this podcast will feel the same way about the two of you.
That's what we're hoping
Appreciate that.
for.
You guys are so lovely. You're so centered. You're so grateful. It's so amazing to hear your journey and your story and the passion you put into these amazing products. So thank you so much for being here.
We appreciate it. And all of your
Appreciate you.
success is earned and deserved. So I'm super
thank you.
happy to hear like
Thank you,
those
guys.
were the 3 brands
Thank you.
that you wanted, and now you're ambassador. Because like, again, same to you. Like you couldn't be a greater person. So like,
I appreciate it. It's very kind of
it's
you.
been amazing
Thank you so
like
much.
to build a friendship with you and get to know
Thank
you.
you. Likewise.
Yeah, we
Thank you, guys.
appreciate it. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you guys. Thank you so much.
course.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Gstaad Guy podcast. If you're keen to learn more, please follow along by engaging with our social channels on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Merci beaucoup, à la prochaine, and a big hug from the Gstaad Guy.